So it's question time. Anybody have any questions? If you guys can just repeat the question when, just so everybody on the phone, I'm going to move the phone over here. Okay, in the back? Be loud, Paul.
Be loud?
Yeah.
It's a question from our lab. In reference to NOAA itself. A little bit more information on kind of the treatment options. Do y'all have is there an implemented decision-making tool that y'all use when determining a treatment option? Try to keep the question short. Easier to repeat. Do y'all use decision-making tools in your treatment option assessments?
This actually may be a question for Jeff. So actually, just to clarify, so in natural resource damage assessment, we may evaluate the impacts on response, but response is making the decision on treatment. So I'll let Jeff weigh in here.
I can expound on that. Basically, the response track and the NERDA track are parallel processes. So NERDA is out collecting damage assessments, collecting evidence, pictures, while the response track is out trying to physically assess and minimize effect and clean up as much oil as we can before we have those effects. So while the two are simultaneously ongoing, they don't necessarily cross paths.
Does that answer your question?
It did. Quick follow-up. Just explain the process just a little bit, how they intersect, and when are those decisions, by who are those decisions made on treatment response?
Well, the decision on choices of treatment are made by the incident commanders. And basically those decisions are made after consultation with, if it's a good commander, with as many people as he can or she can talk to. So we want to make decisions as incident commanders that are best for the resource, best for the environment, with consideration of economics, obviously. But we want to ensure that we're not making decisions in a vacuum. So the federal incident commander would reach out to its NOAA SSC, scientific support coordinator. State representatives would be reaching back to their technical staff to ensure that the decisions they make are ecologically sound. But again, the NERDA and the response tracks are not designed to cross. So independent assessment would warrant that. So you want to make sure that your NERDA track is completely independent of those response decisions, because the effects down the line could be skewed. If they had a say on a treatment process, that treatment process didn't work, caused internal damage, or made the situation much worse, it would compromise the result down the road. Would you like to comment on that? Is that your assessment?
You described that well, yeah. Yeah. No, I think Jeff described that well.
Other questions?
It seems like
Here.
Okay, one thing, Jeff, I noticed on your panel, on your slide about regulations involved, that you sort of left out the national contingency plan and mentioned the national response framework, which is not a regulation, it is policy developed by the Department of Homeland Security after consultation with the states to reflect the notion that all response is local. But so I would ask you to correct that slide, because one of the problems we often have is a misunderstanding of the national contingency plan of those processes, which does include decision-making trees, one of the most important ones being the use of alternative response countermeasures like dispersant. The other thing is there are other damage claims processes other than NERDA, and it brings an interesting question. Other people can file against the fund, the Municipal Liability Trust Fund, for damages, whether they're caused by the oil, loss of use, for instance, or damaged property. So I'm wondering if you think that there's ever been a case where a responsible party has paid for not only NERDA damage, but paid twice through OSLTF damage claims as well. Do you think that happens ever?
Can you guys just repeat the question? Not, you don't have to summarize every one sentence. But if you could just repeat the question.
Okay, I think I'm gonna leave out the part where I messed up on my presentation, because nobody wants to know about that. But yes, I will make the correction for the NCP. But I think the basis of the question was asking, is there potential for double dipping between NERDA damages and the potential for being compensated through the oil spill trust fund liability trust fund? And I would think that there are very many opportunities for that to happen. While there are checks and balances to prevent that from happening, I think a lot of those individuals that may get away with that for a little while, from what I understand, are eventually caught. But yes, there is opportunity for that to happen. Although there are many fail-safes to keep it from happening, I think it still does.
So there's a question online. Let's take that one real quick, and then there's somewhere in the room, I think. Tara, can you just say it loudly and you guys maybe repeat it? Okay, great.
Basically, was there a NERDA process completed after Hurricane Katrina? Because there were lots of reports of oil being spilled as a result of the hurricane, and so was the process enacted after the hurricane?
I was not involved in Katrina. I believe that assessments did occur, but Jeff's nodding yes. So I don't know the full.
Can you repeat the question? I
Oh,
don't
sorry.
think
The question was there NERDA assessments completed during Hurricane Katrina
After it, yeah.
After it.
As a result.
as a result of Hurricane Katrina?
There were just under 1,000 oil spills in Louisiana alone, dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. NOAA had a team down, very heavily involved in NERDA. I think that we learned a lot from that exercise, and we improve every time we go through a response like this. The last big one, obviously, being the Macondo spill. But yes, NERDA was involved after Katrina, and in Louisiana alone, there's almost 1,000 oil spills.
Okay, made it over here. Good amount of time answering that question. Okay, here's the next question.
Hi, Jeff, you mentioned real quick in your presentation, including more about academia and research into combating and responding to these oil spills. And I'm curious, especially with government responses, how we're incorporating more new research as it comes out and working with academia in order to respond to these oil spills and limit the damage that we're actually causing, especially since, like, we learned about dispersants after the deep sea water horizon incident. So how are these processes, especially NERDA, incorporating new research as it comes to light?
Do I need to repeat that? Do I need to repeat the question?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay,
Just in
so to help me if I get it wrong, but you're asking how new and current academia research can be incorporated into response and NERDA management decisions going forward. Okay, from a response perspective, I know in Louisiana, I am currently working on a position for an academia advisor within a response organization. We're also working on getting through into the area contingency plans a position for a fisheries specialist as well. And what we would like to do is bring in some academia as direct advisors. This is something that has not been done before. We see a need for it locally. We've got a plethora of researchers that would fit this bill. And their research is very current. It would be very timely in the responses that we deal with. And we would like to see a way to reach out to them and have them work for the response as opposed to being picked off by the responsible party and working against the response. So it's always been an issue of funding. There's just not money to pay for a position because it's not in the ICS structure to have one. But we would like to change that. So I'm tired of having to work against our best and brightest. I want them working for me. So from a NERDA perspective,
From a NERDA perspective, typically we bring in experts in academia or consultants who we bring into our NERDA assessment process, and they really help inform the kind of studies that we're conducting, the analysis that we're doing, the interpretation. So that's kind of like an ongoing process with a particular event, and then you do have to stay up on the literature and make sure that you're attending conferences and being aware of that new information that's presented, so you think about that when you're conducting your next NERDA.
Or you need to rely on Sea Grant. I'm just kidding, I had to put a plug in. Okay, hold on, I'm coming over that way. There you go.
This is a response to what you just said, but the NOAA Emergency Response Division has a series of scientific support coordinators, and their primary job is to know the local scientists in their region and to integrate that knowledge in the response. So the idea is that there's one focal point that if you go on one of the chemistry groups that respond to the NOAA group, there's a bunch of other folks, people that look at resources and risk and modeling and all these things. But the whole SSC network was designed to allow academic input and other input, regulatory input into oil spill response. So we've got the NERDA, which is looking at the damage assessment, but the mitigating response effort has this SSC network to get the best science into spill response.
And just so you guys know, all of our scientific support coordinators, they wanted to be here today, but they all are responding, like Jeff said, post-hurricane season here.
I think maybe not. You have one in the back.
Who? Okay, well.
Calling you out, Randy.
Oh, nice to meet you. So you got an SSC.
Yeah.
Talk to her.
Oh, Randy.
That's correct, yes. So, thank you for training. I was an OSC for 3 months for almost a year. I see many complaints.
Awesome.
Sorry if I'm have my hood on, not hiding from you. I didn't please say hi.
So are there any other questions in the room? Is that the follow-up?
Yeah. The person online just wanted to know if you had an idea of how much financial damages were assessed after Katrina. If you knew kind of rough idea of the number.
Do I need to repeat the question? Okay, the question is, does someone know the financial damage calculations from Hurricane Katrina in a NERDA perspective? So to answer that, I'm a responder. So I have a track, I respond to oil spills, I clean up oil spills, I'm not involved with NERDA, and I do not know.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was not involved with Katrina. That's something I can follow up on, though I don't have figures at hand.
And Marla's email address is right on that screen, so if you wanna. And for everybody else, it's on your sheets. Okay, so I think we're gonna call it there. We're gonna break. Thank you so much to both of you. That was a great introduction to what we're gonna be covering today.